MAGA, as we've been following very closely over the last couple of days, they are in full panic mode. It is stunning to watch. Nothing should give you more hope than seeing the reaction to the candidacy of Kamala Harris of MAGA. Their reaction to her candidacy has made me confident in our ability to win because there's a total panic. And I think one of the things that could be causing this is playing out in their mind the scenario where Kamala Harris gets on debate stage with Donald Trump and is able to rip him apart, dismantle him. And one of the things that informs that belief, I think, is these resurfaced videos that have been going once again viral of Kamala Harris in, I'll show you some debate moments actually from the vice presidential debate, but most notably her in hearings, first with former Attorney General Bill Barr, and then with, at the time, candidate to be a Supreme Court Justice, Brett Kavanaugh, just very meticulously, as she did as a prosecutor, breaking these individuals down. And so these videos, like I said, have been going viral. Again, people posting this as proof of why MAGA should be in full panic mode. And that's what we'll check out here. Lots to look at, starting with Bill Barr and Kamala Harris.
Attorney General Barr, has the president or anyone at the White House ever asked or suggested that you open an investigation of anyone?
I wouldn't.
Yes or no?
Could you repeat that question?
I will repeat it.
Yeah.
Has the president or anyone at the White House ever asked or suggested that you open an investigation of anyone? Yes or no, please, sir?
The president or anybody else?
Seems you would remember something like that and be able to tell us.
Yeah, but I'm trying to grapple with the word suggest. I mean, there have been discussions of matters out there that they have not asked me to open an investigation, but
Perhaps they've suggested,
I don't know. I wouldn't say suggest.
hinted,
I don't know.
inferred. You don't know. Okay.
Yeah. So, just brilliant stuff there. And I sympathize, MAGA. I hear you. It is frightening to imagine that going up against the disaster mentally that is Donald Trump. And remember, as much as there's rage within the MAGA echo chamber about this being emphasized, it's just true now that Trump is the oldest presidential nominee in history. They wanted to talk about age. Let's talk about age, I say. Here's more of Kamala Harris and Bill Barr.
Here today in response to Senator Graham, you said, quote, that you consulted with Rosenstein constantly, unquote, with respect to the special counsel's investigation and report. But Deputy Attorney General Rosenstein is also a key witness in the firing of FBI Director Comey. Did you consult with I'm not finished.
Yeah.
Did you consult with DOJ ethics officials before you enlisted Rod Rosenstein to participate in a charging decision for an investigation, the subject of which he is also a witness?
My understanding was that he had been cleared already to participate in it by the.
So you had consulted with them and they cleared it?
No, I think they cleared it when he took over the investigation.
Did you
That's
consult?
my understanding.
You don't know whether he's been cleared of a conflict of interest?
He would be participating if there was a conflict of interest.
So you're saying that it did not need to be reviewed by the career ethics officials in your office?
I believe
to determine if
it
was
was.
appropriate?
Well, I believe it was reviewed, and I
And what
would
was the
also
finding?
point out this seems to be a bit of a flip-flop because when the president's supporters
Sir,
were challenging
flip-flop, I think, in this
Rosenstein-
case, is that you're not answering the question directly.
What?
Did the ethics officials...
Bill Barr has never looked so deteriorated, I guess you could say. And it is hard to imagine a more dramatic and consequential momentum shift in presidential politics that's this sudden. Where all of the sudden, anywhere, I know that my feed is, of course, structured based on my stances and stuff, But you're hearing even just it being reported on, and person after person is talking to me about how all of a sudden they're just seeing a bunch of people who before now weren't espousing super political rhetoric online, having positive views of Kamala Harris, sharing around videos, especially young people, of Kamala Harris. And then overall, the media narrative has shifted from one that was very advantageous for Trump to one that is anything but advantageous for Trump. And I just have to keep saying, because I force myself to be subjected to a bunch of right-wing content to prep for the show each day, it has been shocking watching their mood go from however you would describe that feeling, okay, to just somber, angry, disoriented. And in part, that's because of what we're watching here, imagining this sort of messenger versus Trump, even causing them to question if J.D. Vance was the right pick, because they did that not super serious. They did it seriously, but they weren't contemplating in the heaviest of ways, the deepest of ways, who could help Trump the most. And reportedly, it just sort of was a Trump preference, Trump kids preference. Oh, I like JD, I guess. And now they're thinking, wait, oh gosh, this might be harder than we expected. Should we have thought about that more? Here's Brett Kavanaugh and Kamala Harris. Then we'll get to the vice presidential debate.
Can you think of any laws that give government the power to make decisions about the male body?
I'm happy to answer a more specific question. But
Male versus female?
there are medical procedures.
Okay. That the government has the power to make a decision about a man's body?
I thought you were asking about medical procedures
No,
that are unique to men.
I'll repeat the question. Can you think of any laws that give the government the power to make decisions about the male body?
I'm not thinking of any right now, Senator.
When referring to cases as settled law, you have described them as precedent and, quote, precedent on precedent. You've mentioned that a number of times today and during the course of the hearing. As a factual matter, can 5 Supreme Court justices overturn any precedent at any time if a case comes before them on that issue?
You start with the system of precedent that's rooted in the Constitution.
I know, but just as a factual matter.
Yeah, okay, so we'll stop that one. That also serves as a reminder of how conservative justice candidate after conservative justice candidate would come before these committees and say, Roe v. Wade, settled. Precedent on precedent. Indicating we're not going to touch that. I have no interest in touching Roe v. Wade. And they lied. And they lied. So that also is a takeaway from that moment. Quick pause from your viewing of this video to request that you subscribe if you're not already to this channel. We've heard some people saying that they'll subscribe and then check back later and they're unsubscribed. That's not good. So if you could make sure that you are subscribed, even if you think that you are, I would greatly appreciate it. Back to the video. Okay, let's get to the vice presidential debate. As in theme for the conversation we're having, as you can get, this was of course Pence versus Kamala Harris. A few highlights from that.
Well, let's get
But Susan, this is important.
Susan,
I want to
have to
add,
weigh in
but
here.
Mr. Vice President, I'm speaking.
I have to
I'm
weigh in.
speaking.
Yeah, you
So
can have
I
15 more
wanna-
seconds, and then we'll give the vice president
Thank
a
you.
chance.
That's so good. Treated like a little kid one more time.
Well, let's get
But Susan, this is important.
Susan,
I want to
have
add,
to
but
weigh in here.
Mr. Vice President, I'm speaking.
I have to
I'm
weigh in.
speaking.
Yeah, you
So
can have
I
15 more
wanna-
seconds, and then we'll give the vice president
Thank
a
you.
chance to
So I
respond.
want to ask the American people, how calm were you when you were panicked about where you're going to get your next roll of toilet paper? How calm were you?
Stop that one there. Jump over to this next one.
The president's trade war with China. You lost that trade war. You lost it.
Lost the trade war with China. Joe Biden never fought it. Joe Biden has been a cheerleader for communist China through over the last several decades.
I will not sit here and be lectured by the vice president on what it means to enforce the laws of our country. I am the only one on this stage.
As you can tell, this is sort of a supercut of a bunch of different moments.
On what it means to enforce the laws of our country. I am the only one on this stage who has personally prosecuted
everything from child sexual assault to homicide.
Are you and Joe Biden, if somehow you win this election?
And then we'll wrap it up with this one.
You respect the American people when you tell them the truth. You respect the American people when you have the courage
Which we've
to be a
always
leader
done.
speaking of those things that you may not want people to hear, but they need to hear so they can protect themselves. But this administration stood on information that if you had as a parent, if you had as a worker, knowing you didn't have enough money saved up, and now you're standing in a food line because of the ineptitude of an administration that was unwilling to speak the truth to the American people.
So that versus Donald Trump is worth panicking over and maybe explain some of it, because we're trying to understand. Didn't y'all say it was y'all, Maga? You who said that Kamala would be so beatable. Democrats, tough situation. Even if Biden drops out, then Kamala probably will be the nominee, and that's not any better. But now, what is all this freak out about? I don't understand. Reportedly, I think completely freaking out was the phrase that was reported on from inside the Trump campaign. Trump saying, should the Republican Party be paid for the fraud that the Democratic Party engaged in? Because we did all this work to attack Biden and now it's Kamala Harris. Well, yeah, Biden hadn't become the official nominee yet, as this bizarre conversations happening within MAGA media about how this is somehow anti-democratic. They seem to misunderstand the rules of the nominating process, and Biden choosing after the primary process not to accept the nomination does set up this very situation. And Kamala Harris has very rapidly been able to coalesce support around herself. But y'all now arguing that that shouldn't have been allowed, that Joe Biden should stay on the ticket, and that your lies that you spent so much money to espouse about Joe Biden should still hold weight. Not super compelling to me, if I'm going to be completely honest. I have for you also here, speaking of resurfaced videos, a video of the Attorney General of California at the time, Kamala Harris, calling, let's see so I can describe this correctly, a Los Angeles clerk to begin gay marriages after Proposition 8 was halted in 2010.
We have LA. This is her telling LA that. Hi, is this the clerk in Los Angeles? This is Kamala Harris. You must start marriages immediately. You must start the marriages immediately. Okay, that's wonderful. Thank you. Have a good day and enjoy it. It's going to be fun.
So there's that as well. We will need to see. I've been having some people asking about polling. There has been polls just radical in either direction. I've seen some very good polls for Kamala Harris in recent hours. I shouldn't say days because all this is happening really soon or recently. And then, some that look bad. Let's just give it a second to breathe. Polling's hard to assess until we have about 1, 2, maybe even 3 weeks since the event we're wanting to see polling about. And that's what we're going to be watching over the next few weeks. But I would say, and this is totally vibe related, but I think some evidence does inform this vibe, that we are in a really good spot. I didn't know we were going to be so quickly. So if you're asking, wait, then why weren't you saying right before? I didn't know that it was going to go this well. But seeing the shift, just like how it was devastating for the entire media narrative to become about Biden and questions about competency and all that, mainstream media just surround sound covering that, right-wing media covering it, that was super damaging because unilateral media narratives have quite the impact. Similar things happening here, but it's the opposite. It's this unilateral, except for right-wing, but their attacks are sort of falling flat, positive message about Kamala Harris and the Democratic Party. Not because, as MAGA is asserting, there's some conspiracy to push out pro-Kamala stuff, but because in reporting on the situation, the excitement, the momentum, the accurate telling of that story at the moment is a positive one. It makes Kamala look good because of it being a much better political moment for the Democratic Party. Let me know what you thought of those flashbacks in the comments. If you want to get extra content daily and support the work we do, you can do so by clicking the join button below. And in the description of all of our videos now is the donation link where, and if you already know, I can just go to ActBlue by myself and typing in. If you'll click this link, then it's still ActBlue. You can donate to Kamala Harris's campaign, but it allows us to track how many of my supporters or my viewers have gone and supported Kamala Harris campaign, because we're going to do $1 million by 1 million subscribers.